And that jarring cacophony tells you that you're back with the Power of Three podcast. And as you can hear in the background, there's some weird electronic music from circa 1971-72. What on earth could it be? Well, it's obvious. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you'll recognise it from Doctor Who The Music, also known as Doctor Who The Music Volume 1. It's Malcolm Clarke's score from The Sea Devils. And that's kind of a clue as to where we're going today and what we're going to be talking about. I'm Kenny Smith, and I was about to say as usual, sometimes I am alone, but today I'm not. And why? Who's that over there in
Kenny,
sunny Glasgow?
You're never alone. Hello, everyone.
Oh, thanks,
I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
And joining us from all the way up the road in Oban.
Hello, Commander.
Hello.
Sorry, was that a Zygon or is that a Sea Devil? Hello, everyone. Stevie here, fresh from Sea Devil Joy.
Oh, yes, we do enjoy our Sea Devil Joy, do we? Not. Do we not? Yes. You need to break it up and make it more staccato.
I haven't quite got the hang of Sea Devils. I wonder whether it was a meant voice or it was just somebody being strangled in the suit.
And joining us from Doon the Water, down in lovely Greenock, it's Dr. John.
Hello, Kenny.
Boyd.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, John.
It's lovely to be invited back to share my extensive experience and wisdom in Doctor Who. This is probably much more up my street because, as I'm usually picked on for being the oldest member of the group, I've got the longest memory of actually watching Doctor Who. So, yeah, this is going to be fun for me, I think.
Absolutely. And we're going to kick off by discussing the Sea Devils, given that we've got the war between the land and the sea coming up, and we've got the return of the, as they're apparently now referred to, the Homo Aqua.
A new one on me.
A strange term, wouldn't you think? Apparently that's the way we do it now. That's the way we roll. So forget the Eocenes. It's Homo Aqua.
Pity they didn't get the Latin right, but never mind. Well,
what would it be correctly in
Homo
Latin?
Aquaticus. Yeah, Homo Aquaticus. So if they're saying Homo Aqua, that's just man or human and water. Yeah.
Waterman.
Exactly.
Like Pete, but without the good music. We've got Malcolm Clarke's score instead. But hey, we'll come to that. Absolutely. So you watched the Sea Devils on its original transmission back in 1972.
I did indeed, and it's my first memory of watching Doctor Who, and I think it's probably my first memory of watching television ever. Of course, back in those days, it was on a black and white TV, so all of my first recollections of this are monochrome. And I think, having sat over the past couple of days and thought about it and tried to retrace my steps, if you like, I've got a feeling that it was possibly the Christmas omnibus that I saw, because I associate it very much with Christmas. I've got something about the Christmas tree being up and things like that. So I think it was probably that kind of omnibus from later in 1972. Yeah, a very powerful impression that it made upon me, and in particular the image which is seared into my mind's retina is that of the Sea Devils coming out of the water. I think because, I mean, you mentioned, I think, did you say from down the water or whatever? I mean, I'm based in Greenock, so we are by the river, the estuary of the River Clyde, but not far from where it meets the sea, and the river's so wide it looks like the sea, especially if you're a kid of 4 or 5. And we also had a naval base at the end of the Esplanade in Greenock, which looks very much like the naval base, like a red brick. It's now gone, replaced with very exclusive flats, but yeah, that was at the end of the Esplanade, facing out into the sea. So as a child going out for walks along the front, you could just imagine Sea Devils making their way up the shore to menace the good burgers of Greenock and Gourock, and the bad burgers too, of course.
Yeah, and it's amazing because I think the first time I saw it would have been a Wobble Vision VHS copy at the Glasgow Doctor Who group around 1990. In fact, it may even have been a Video 2000 copy
Right,
that my friend Ian Gardner had, and Ian had it from somebody in Australia or New Zealand. And because we had a Video 2000 and a VHS, by this point we had the V2000 was our first video, and then obviously when it started to die out, we got the VHS. So I was able to copy it from Ian's one onto the VHS. So I was able to do copies of that for quite a few of my friends. Don't do copies, kids, it's wrong, but those were the 90s.
Don't do it.
Like ecstasy, don't do it. Yeah, so that was my sort of first experience of watching it. And then, of course, there was the BBC Two repeat. And then along came the VHS official BBC release a few years later.
Have them all.
So when did you first rediscover it?
Well, I never lost it, to be honest, in that it was also one of the first Target novelizations that I read, albeit I think it was W.H. Allen hardback from our local library. And then I got my own paperback copy. It was the first reprint with the new cover. I can't remember who did the cover now.
I think it was John Geary, and it has sort of the more yellowish sort of coloured for the.
So that's the paperback one, but then later on, for nostalgia's sake, I purchased a hardback copy of the original. Again, it's a fantastic novelisation. Malcolm Hulke, well, if anyone would do justice to his story, it was great.
I'd say incredible, actually.
Yeah, and those illustrations as well. Again, those are very kind of important for me. Not having access to videos and so on until much later, that helped keep that kind of story fresh in my mind. But I got the VHS again. I still have it somewhere. As soon as that came out, I can't quite remember when that would have been, but yeah. But it's been a story that I've returned to many times, and I never get bored of it, and I never tire of watching it. There's always something new. I mean, my most recent watching of it, something I very seldom do actually on the Blu-ray collection and indeed the previous DVDs. I very seldom listen to the audio commentaries, but I did this time listen to the commentary moderated by Andrew Cartmel with Michael Bryant and Barry Letts and Terence Dix, and it's lovely just listening to them. Michael Bryant trying to get a word in edgeways, but he's clearly so enthusiastic and proud of what he's produced, and rightly so. Again, I think it's a fantastically directed story, and even just the way he's talking about, doing profile close-ups of dialogue and things like that, you can think, gosh, yeah, that's a really good shot, and you're just enjoying watching the story so much that you kind of miss out. Actually, technically, that's a really good way to film that, or giving away the secret of how they did the stunt with the master throwing the knife at the doctor and all of that. So I literally looked at it or watched it with fresh eyes, listening to the commentary of the people who are involved in bringing the story to the screen in the first place. So it was a real delight.
I watched it just ahead of our chat with the production subtitles on, and that was fantastic and really interesting, and so much to take in. You're watching the visuals but also reading the text. And I didn't realise that they let Katie Manning pilot the hovercraft briefly, and you thought the notoriously short-sighted Katie Manning had to go at that, and she accidentally deflated half the hovercraft at one point. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Health and safety nightmare. Ahoy. I keep saying ahoy, which I guess is appropriate given the fact that the Navy are all over this. I suppose that's what makes it such a good episode too, the fact that the Royal Navy were so willing to lend their men and resources to make it look so good, and also probably why John Pertwee looks like he's having the absolute time of his life. That and little, speed trikes, whatever they were called, water skis or whatever, jet ski type things. Yeah.
I can't disagree with that, because I think that the Royal Naval involvement, it actually it looks so impressive. It, the fact you can see that it's the real actors on board a real warship.
Yeah.
And you learn the fate of what happened to that vessel that they were on in the production notes. I think it was broken down around 1981.
Right.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all these wee details I like.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely, I mean, the feel of it is it's authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a strong word to use, but it feels absolutely right, and it looks so real considering we obviously had the army and the mind of evil, and here we get this, and it looks so real. I mean, I still think that cliffhanger when he's gone is brilliant from the diving bell.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. It really is. And for a 6-parter, I really can't stick 7-parters for a start, with the possible exception of Inferno. 6-parters are usually not that much better, to be honest. You can spot the padding from a nautical mile away. But again, there doesn't seem to be much fat in this 6-parter. The pace is great. There's nothing really gratuitous that doesn't contribute to the plot. Okay, you could say that, let John Pertwee again scoot about in various motorized gadgets is a bit of an indulgence, but nothing compared with Planet of the Spiders, where you kind of think this really has not much to do with anything. It's just
is it episode 3 where it's just one big chase?
One big episode full of a chase. You're like, okay, but no, I think it's a really tight story, and again, to be really superficial, talking about just as a very impressionable child, I'm always a firm and strong proponent of this thing about, as a child, you imprint on your doctor, and John Pertwee was my doctor, and you can see, especially in the Sea Devils, that this is John Pertwee at his peak. He looks absolutely magnificent in this story, and there are so many iconic shots, images, photos. In fact, this is my 1975 annual, and for the benefit of the YouTube viewers, the image on the back is from the Sea Devils as he's looking out over the cliff towards the Sea Devils emerging, and it's just such an amazing image. And there are other ones that have been the original imprint of the making of Doctor Who has another still, and again there's that really famous one of the Doctor about to kind of karate chop the Sea Devil. He just looks so good, and all the way through it. I mean, I realise I'm sounding really superficial and maybe a bit creepy, but I just think he looks magnificent. And as a child who was just kind of saying, "Wow, what is this program?" So much of what we see in that story really stayed with me and kind of bled into other ways in which I sort of acted out and played out the show subsequently with my friends. So there's not an awful lot of sword fights in Doctor Who, and not even that many in the Third Doctor's tenure. But the fantastic sword fight between the Doctor and the Master in this meant that when I was playing Doctor Who with my wee pals, it usually involved a sword fight. So there was a bit of that, and it merged and bled into the Three Musketeers, perhaps a bit of the Venusian Aikido as well. It distills all the things that John Pertwee's era is about, making gadgets as well, the flair, the pomposity. It's all wonderful.
It's definitely not substandard. See what I did there? Keeping the naval puns going. Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely you can see why Peter Capaldi's imagery is so very like Pertwee's, particularly based on this story.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a story that made a big impression on our Lord Capaldi.
And I think this another reason why I was steered into watching this is that my dad was a submarine engineer. He built submarines for Scott Lithgow's. I remember him sitting beside me and watching, and he used to watch Doctor Who anyway before I was born even. But I remember him sitting beside me and kind of saying, "Oh, I build those," and I was like, "Oh, wow!" And that was the first time that it ever really occurred to me what my dad did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as Michael Bryant said in the commentary, it would have been great if they were able to use a real submarine, but it would have been impossible to film in, because there's just not enough room.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things my dad probably would have pointed out. Oh, they're walking about as if, they've got all the space in the world, but it's not like that. And I do remember seeing photographs of my dad, in the subs where he was working, and they were all very much cramped. And my dad was in the Navy as well. So I suppose that was another thing that would have made him sit up and pay attention to what was going on in this particular episode.
That's a fantastic thing to have, that sort of Doctor Who brings you closer to your dad in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Because he died when I was 9, so he wasn't around for that much longer, sadly.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you have those memories, and hopefully bring a happy wee smile to your face when you're watching it even now.
Indeed.
I have that when watching season 15 Tom Baker's, because my mum watched Doctor Who, and that's how I get into it, because she loved watching Tom Baker, and my mum passed away 14 years ago this Sunday as we talk, and so watching anything season 15 makes me feel quite happy and think of my mum. So it's funny how these wee trigger things are there just to bring back our families in that way. Hurrah for Doctor Who and its good things. Let's talk about the Sea Devils themselves. I just think the design is fantastic. I think the turtle look, brilliant. It's something recognisable but distorted. And I don't mind the netting on them at all. I think it sort of gives them a distinctive look.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Again, I look at this pretty much through the eyes of a child, and they were, I think, very effectively realised. As you say, the thing about choosing a turtle is something which is really kind of recognisable, and yet not one that I don't think we would ever have thought of to say, well, clearly you would think of it in terms of an aquatic animal, but just, I think, works really well. Michael Bryant, I noticed in the commentary, is kind of a bit apologetic, saying, it doesn't, they look a bit naff when you see them moving about. And yeah, I guess they do perhaps look slightly clumsy, but if you see them close up, and particularly if all you're really looking at are still photographs, they look amazing. I know John Pertwee himself wasn't that sold on them either, because it contravened his big eyes and mouth rule quite egregiously, but I think John Friedlander did a really good job on them, and yeah, I think they stand the test of time, really.
Very much so. And when their first 2 TV reappearances, well, very similar in design, so that was good to see. Mm-hmm. The guest cast, Edwin Richfield's completely different part from Mestor, of course, really good. Mm-hmm. And of course, we get the future Rassilon there and Donald Sumpter.
Yes, as the commander of the sub. Yeah, it's a great cast. I think everyone really enhances the story. Katie, of course, is fabulous, and so is Stuart Fell impersonating her, Tom Wiggles and all that. Yeah, there's again not a naff performance in it, and it's good that we get unusually 2 bumbling sort of civil service type figures. One, kind of almost a tragic hero, but yeah, there's plenty of good stuff in there, especially given that there's no presence of Unit in this, other than the shadowy waving of a pass here and there and some references to Unit, but it very much is very faithful to this kind of tradition of the military finding very botched ways of dealing with delicate situations, like where there could have been another way, to quote another Sea Devil story.
We'll come to that shortly. Now, of course, something that I alluded to earlier on was Malcolm Clarke's score. First time I heard it was on Doctor Who the Music, and I just thought, this is bonkers. I love it. I think that may be partly influential in my love of electronic music, which you may have noticed I still rather like now.
Yeah, I didn't remember the music, as you might imagine, from my first watching of it, and like you, it was on that 1983 album where you had a really nice sort of Sea Devil suite in it, and listening to that is really good, actually. I know that some people pan it, and they say, it's too intrusive, it's too much, and so on. I think it really adds to the show. and I'm intrigued about the rationale of changing the music and how much it'll change and what will change about it. It's going to be a complete rewrite from top to bottom, but I think it's an enhancement to the story. I really do, and certainly better than their cousins. Incidental music with, oh yeah, yeah. Is that Kerry Blyton? Yeah, yeah. Idiosyncratic, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it adds to the alien atmosphere of the Sea Devils, the otherworldliness. Well, obviously they're the same worldliness, but
Yeah,
other timeliness.
it's very aquatic, I think, in its
Bubbly in
feels.
places
There's
as
lots
well.
of bubbliness. Yeah, I think in terms of the texture of the sound, it's very rich. I think so.
Yeah,
I would always defend it.
same here. 100% agree. But all in all, for me, it's definitely one of my favourite Pertwees. It's, if not my favourite, actually, because rewatching it, I thought I'll just watch one episode a night.
Mhm.
Ended up doing 2 a night before I get tired.
Yeah, it's an episode, quite apart from my own sort of emotional attachment to it, it's an episode that I would have no qualms about showing someone who's new to Doctor Who. And if they want to see what a good Doctor Who story is, I would have no hesitation in saying, let's stick this on. You'll enjoy this.
So, Dave, the Sea Devils, I have to say that I must have encountered it in book form and indeed the soundtrack pretty much around the same time, probably around 1983. Well, that'd be about 1983. That would have been. So, what was your first encounter with those Devils of the Sea, the Homo Aquatica?
I'm sure I would have read the book. I remember the fairly strong feeling that there was a reprint hardcover, or with the second cover art in Foxbar Library. I've got a feeling I would have read it there, and I got Doctor Who the music later than 83. I don't think I got it till about 87 or 88, something like that. But I didn't see the story until the BBC 2 repeat, which started in sort of round about Easter 1992, because they all tied in. Episode 1, which was trailed extensively, and finished with that great shot of Johnsy sort of miming it for the benefit of our YouTube viewers, sort of turning and sort of smiling like so. Episode 1 went out the night of when John Pertwee basically appeared at Paisley Museum and Art Galleries to publicise Behind the Sofa coming to Paisley. So that was a very exciting day. Not only to meet John in real life for the first time, but episode 1 of the Sea Devils was on a couple hours later. It was glorious. Very, very exciting. It's one of those ones, it's like a lot of Pertwee stories, I think. Because we read the book first, you see the television version and you always feel they kind of fall a little bit short. I remember a review years ago which pointed out the detail of I can't remember who it is, the prison governor guy, when he finally gets his gun.
Trenchard.
Yeah, when he gets his gun to square up to the Sea Devils and that, and Malcolm Hulke in the novelisation added the detail that he hadn't switched off the safety catch, but someone else did switch it off, so it looked as if he'd wasn't an absolute dafty. So that's one of those little things like the tiny detail in Day of the Daleks when Joe's with the controller and she says that was a fabulous meal, and in the book Terence gives her the thought about how it was pretty tasteless and pretty horrible. So just the good thing with the early novels was they really added and embellished in subtle ways. And you take these little details in, and when you watch the television version, you miss them. But I really like the TV version for a 6-parter. It's not too stodgy. It's not too slow. Some absolutely amazing location filming, and those really daft cars with all the men in berets and moustaches flying about in them. It's great fun. I really like it. The score's mental, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's third story of season 9, 3 stories in, they're all bangers, and it's only the next 2 that are a bit wobbly that year for me. And if the Mutants had been a 4-parter, it'd have been cracking, but that's another story. Yes, I do like the Sea Devils very much indeed.
So, Stevie, what's your memories of the Sea Devils?
My first memories are actually reading, I'm sure this is correct, the Target novelisation. Maybe that's not quite true. I think possibly the first memories were seeing black and white stills photos, probably pre-production photos of Sea Devils and string vests, which I always found quite amusing, and their little discs of death. So I think a mixture of that magazine, probably the Making of Doctor Who book, which I cherished and still do, And then I eventually would have seen it on a repeat. I couldn't tell you when. I'm not sure whether that was part of UK TV Gold or whatever it was called with the square
BSB, they didn't show it. I had a BSB square reel. I think it might be like the early 90s repeats on BBC Two.
Possibly. I mean, do you know, I haven't seen it for a long while, but I've probably seen it 2 or 3 times, and I've read the book 2 or 3 times. And I think my comment would be the TV serial is probably just a little overlong. There's a bit of padding, but I really enjoyed the book. But I also enjoyed the TV series for the visuals that it gives us with the Sea Devils coming out. Boy, those actors were working hard. That must have been a tricky number. I loved it for the Master, and all that stuff he was in, and sea forts. What can go wrong? Plus hovercrafts. It's a boy's dream in those days. And it just, as I say, it's a bit overlong. It swims along. It's a good action romp. The book's good. I have such fond memories of it, and they bring that out with clips of John Pertwee and the sonic screwdriver exploding. Was he exploding mines, or was he just managing to blow up the beach?
Yeah, it was landmines.
And Sea Devils reeling back and so on. And yeah, I mean, altogether, I loved that. It was great.
Fantastic. So the next one we're going to talk about is Warriors of the Deep. Steevie, do you have many memories from watching this first time around? Because my excitement for this one was piqued by the Radio Times 20th anniversary special, and there was pictures of things like the Malice in there, and we got to see Sentinel-6, which I thought was such a great name as well.
Yep. It brought back a lot of memories rewatching it recently, but most of all of the trailer for that season, where you had Sentinel-6, Dr. the Malice. I remember that, obviously with an Australian accent, and then you had bits of Dalek and everything in. It was a really good trailer. I seem to remember it really built up. So that was my first kind of thing, and thinking, oh, Sea Devils or Silurians, because I'm sure we had some spoilers in there. It wasn't going to be one of those, I wonder what the monster is this week. So yeah, that's kind of my overriding memory. And then it was, of course, I think, if I remember rightly, this is when Doctor Who changed from a Saturday to weekday. Was it?
Yes, the Davison years, it had been done. Davison years were always through the week, 2 episodes a week.
That's right. But this is the one I remember going on more onto that. It must have been something that was happening in my life. I think we discussed it previously. I didn't always see episodes. I set a tape recorder going, run through to whatever it was. My dad was organising a youth club and hoped that it got to the end so I would never see the visuals. But this one was actually one that I saw, I think, 2 episodes a week?
Yes.
And, the cliffhangers of Doctor disappearing into the water and stuff. So
very violent, that cliffhanger, given that the Doctor's fighting back.
Yes, but altogether very violent for Davison. Mm-hmm. That whole bit. It was a wee bit. Rewatching that, I was a wee bit out of character. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's very Eric Sayward though. He liked to have that slightly more violent voice. You think of Earthshock, the Doctor holds a gun, and
yeah. So I mean, we'll obviously go into much more detail. But I think alongside that, I'd have had the book, because I think the book came out pretty rapidly after, if I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And what I would say is the book gave the story time to breathe. And as a child watching Doctor Who, because I was a child watching it in the 80s, I don't think I picked up what I'm going to call the nuances that I picked up yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
As a 55-year-old sitting there with my wife.
Yeah.
That was a completely different watch.
Yeah. I was quite surprised I watched it all, and I watched the DVD because I brought up the production notes just because I like to read those as I'm watching along. And yes, this was... I can't have watched this in a good probably 10, maybe 15 years since the DVD came out, so... It was, as you say, it's interesting. I mean, things that struck me early doors, the Silurians are so slow, the way they move.
Yes.
And the way they talk as well. And it's like, oh my goodness, just to quote that Rocksteady album you probably won't have heard of, don't bore us, get to the chorus.
Yeah, it was, they were terribly slow, terribly rotund. And I think the comment, there'll be a lot of reference to the person sitting next to me as I watched it. The comment was, well, I could probably get away from them.
Yeah.
There wasn't much kind of appearing behind a la later series, the Madame Vastra's kind of thing, that she's suddenly in front of you, you know, you've got nowhere to run. Mm-hmm. But I would say, there's things to like about this, but I would say, and I've had a few people actually comment when they asked me what I was doing recently, and I said what I was watching, saying, oh yeah, well, that kind of episode is much better than the newer stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, if you remember it as you remember it, but we don't want monsters like that anymore. You know, we don't want plots like that anymore. It is slow and cumbersome unfortunately, in its execution.
Yeah, as they're explaining the plot to each other, the exposition at the times is, our Sea Devil brothers and things like that. It's just, the pace of it is just, it's lethargic at times. And I do feel quite sorry for Pennant Roberts, because he was lumbered, is probably the most appropriate word, with an awful lot of inbuilt difficulties. Yeah. And given that, you know, we could follow that up with the Sea Devils as well, given that they're having to walk so slowly so they can keep the heads on, and then the helmets on top of the heads so they don't fall off. Yeah.
And again, within the book, it's so much more in your brain and how it would work and whatever. And I think that's where, unfortunately, it lacks. But then I think it's quite a cheap episode because their money was going elsewhere in the series. I would have said, maybe I'm wrong. I have been so many times, and I do apologise if I am. But that's what it felt like. They were trying to do an awful lot with very little.
For a season opener, it's not the most... You think of what we get nowadays as season openers, you think of something like Remembrance, Battlefield, even Time in the Rani, they've all got an awful lot of pace and action to them, and you know, there's just so much in them, and the pace of this one is just pedestrian, and it's just not got the pizzazz factor. I mean, okay, you're bringing back the Silurians and the Sea Devils, but that alone is not enough to sell it for me.
No, I think I shouldn't be noticing for the first time, oh look, the Sea Devils have webbed feet. That's not the point of the episode, but that's what I was getting. I wonder, when they were writing and planning it, whether they were running short or whether they just decided to make this longer. I don't remember the original Sea Devils or Cave Monsters. Again, the 6 or 7 episodes can be too much, but I don't believe that the conversations were so long.
No, even, I mean, watching the Silurians where they're having their conversations. What do you mean? These creatures, we must destroy the ape creatures. And no, we must take more of a measured approach. And they've got characters, whereas these three are just, the humans. Yes. And I mean, what do we think of the redesign of the Silurians and Sea Devils?
I just, as I said earlier, the Silurians seemed a little rotund. We seem to have extra bits. I seem to remember them being kind of a bit more willowy characters when it originally, and a bit more animated. There was an awful lot of nodding. Mm-hmm. I think you're let down again just by the time that it was done and the prosthetics. You know, not having moving mouths. Now I remember in the books it was all telepathic, and they were speaking directly to the Doctor's mind, etc. And the flashing light was just an indicator that this was all happening. But it does become distracting for a while. And then some of them were almost incomprehensible unless you were listening really, really closely. And if you closed your eyes, at one point you had one of them saying, oh, well, we've done this, and blah, blah. And then the leader, Icthar, goes, excellent. And it sounds like a Cyberman.
Yeah.
So I don't want to diss the episode, because I do have fond memories of it, but yeah, that could have just been that quick. And the redesign, the helmets on the Sea Devils, I didn't feel it added much to it. Sovix was the only one that really did anything, and even then, he didn't really do anything other than...
He lumbered around slowly.
He lumbered around slowly, and then he appeared as if by magic. Yeah, it's a shame. And as I say, with the book, or if you were to adapt that to audio, it'd be much different. But then, we always talk about pace. Not all episodes of Classic Who lack pace, but some, when they do, you really notice. And I suppose that's sometimes why we've got the re-edits of stuff like Daleks, War Games, just to give a modern audience and say, look, this is what it is, and enjoy. I'm not sure a modern audience would sit through.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I mean, for me, I think the Sea Devils, the masks, I think they're based on the original. An impression was taken from one of the original masks. But the colour of them, that sort of sickly grey is weird. Why didn't they just stick with the original colour scheme?
Yeah.
And sort of that brownish, greenish colour, whichever light was shining on them at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, giving them the whole samurai look, I can see why they've done that, because they're being portrayed as warriors, but it's just...
No.
If they can't move, because you think of samurai...
Graceful movement and quick movement, balanced movement. There's none.
And whereas the only balancing going on here is keeping that head on.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the other weird thing for me is the Silurian eye. It just indicates which one's talking, whereas originally that was their psychic powers, where they could, stun the Doctor or knock him unconscious, or they could control things like open a gate or prison cell and things like that.
Yeah.
But here it's just an indicator as to who's talking, and they're slow, and it's not... I mean, it's an okay evolution of the design for the mask, but for the rest of the body, it's just...
No.
It's too much. What did we think of some of the other elements of the story? I have to say that in Seabase 4, I love the uniforms they have, because they're pretty much shell suits of the future.
Yeah.
And I just thought, hey, if that's the outfit you wear to work in the future, I want to live in 2084.
Do you know, I thought that the Seabase set, apart from the rubber doors, which we'll maybe come to later, but the Seabase set, the costumes, the consoles they had, it was good. I'm guessing, did they reuse that set for the Dalek story later? Because it looks like bits of it might have been adapted. It seemed to be the season of the low ceilings. And I do like that, because a studio can be endless, but it's quite nice to be enclosed. I suppose it added to the claustrophobia a wee bit of the thing. So it looked great, and it was white, and it was lit nicely.
See, I would say that there's some scenes where they're in the corridors where the lighting's pulled down a bit, because for me it's perhaps a bit too bright, and that makes it a bit too unforgiving when we get the Silurians and the Sea Devils and the thing we haven't discussed yet going through the corridors.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought there's some good characters there. I mean, I thought that, the fact that you've got the control element and the spy element with the control disc, I thought that was great fun.
Yeah. With
Dr. Solau, Ian McCulloch is great playing the villainous part. But I mean, there's an awful lot of guards. Davison's comedy with putting on the helmet and going, "What have you been eating?"
Yes.
But it's one of those rare moments of humour that he manages to inject into the part that Mr. Nathan Turner was not a big fan of.
Yeah. And then you had the Tegan, "What have you been eating, Doctor?" That was that was funny. Dr. Solow's, we were wondering, but it didn't seem to be in the credits. We did look. We were expecting her wig to be credited. We weren't sure whether that was a sentient being or not. We were expecting some kind of revelation. We weren't really, but it was a funny comment.
Yeah, but it was nice to see that they had a sort of an international crew. It didn't, the fact it was very representative. The fact that you could see there were different nations represented there, and the security staff and the leaders, and there was a nice wee mix that way.
It was interesting. The blocks that they talked about weren't West v East. Sort of Russians versus Americans. You had that nice mix there. And in actual fact, I think, again, could be wrong, but I have the feeling the designer might have been watching Space 1999, because it had that kind of international crew element. similar costumes. Wasn't quite sure what the triangle on the back of everyone's
Yeah,
thing
it's not like the robot mummies.
some kind of parachute for underwater. I don't know. But, you know, it did have that kind of design element of a poor man's Space 1999. I love the concept of the sync operator as being the last resort. You know, you can hack away, but unless you've got somebody plugged into this thing, albeit with a microphone jack, that's a lot of data to go in the brain. But I think that actually stuck in my mind through the book as well, and I felt really sorry that Maddox's friend was killed by Maddox, but not really
Karina. Yeah,
Karina. That was, you know, there were some touching bits in there, and you know, he got his revenge, or almost got his revenge, and stuff, and that was a kind of a nice thing that they did with that character, because he could have been so thrown away. And yeah, the spy element was, I like that. I mean, never fully explained other than we're working for the other side.
Yeah, because in the novelization, I'm sure that the world blocks are north of the equator versus south of the equator.
Yeah.
So it's rather than east v west. So Terence has just gone for the other 2 points of the compass, which I thought that's quite a nice touch, different.
Yeah. What I do need you to do at some point, Kenny, and maybe someone's done this on Tinternet already, but I think we should find and play back in order all the times Tegan says, "Where are we?" I suddenly became aware that this is quite a common phrase. Maybe it was a joke, but it seems to go right through her stories.
Yeah, well, somebody put together all the master chuckles, which we used quite recently on the Anthony Ainley action figure episode. So they had all the Ainley chuckles, so that was quite fun.
Yeah.
So we have avoided it for long enough. The Murka.
If your mansion house needs haunting, just call
Rent a Ghost.
Thank you.
Yes, and just like that, the Murka appears from behind those foam doors.
They weren't foam, Kenny. They were rubber.
Foam rubber.
They bent and boinged about like a
mattress.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing is, on paper, the Murka is a great idea.
Yep.
In practice, this is the 1980s on a BBC budget. This should have been just like, no, let's just have Silurians using their mental powers. That would have worked better.
I think it could have worked better if they'd taken the alien film approach and shown you very little.
Less is more.
If it's zooming by and you're not seeing, and you're just basically seeing the fists or the eyes or whatever fleetingly. If the sea base hadn't been so well lit, we might have got away with that. All credit to the operators. I'm sure they did their very best. I'm sure the crew did their very best. It's just something that on screen does not work. I can't imagine a herd of Murkas attacking a base without bumping into each other.
Very slowly.
What was hilarious was Dr. Swallow. When she appeared and was, shall we say, surprised by the Murka, and then went into whatever kind of martial art she went into.
Do you know, literally as we talk, I've got it on in the background, and that's exactly the scene that's there, right as you said that.
But the Murka follows suit. It's like, she stands there and goes, "Ah!" And the Murka goes, "Oh, ah!" And they kind of parry with each other before she gets electrocuted. And I hadn't even spotted that before. And I can only imagine. I can only imagine what was going on during the shoot there. Somebody was quietly going, "It's come to this."
Well, apparently, according to the production notes in the DVD, it was because Ingrid Pitt did martial arts and she wanted to bring that into the story. So they sort of thought, okay, we'll do that where she can try and take on the Murka. And yeah, it was quite shocking, literally, in this case.
Literally shocking. Although it's odd for rubber doors that, and in the book, I remember it distinctly. So, big metal door has fallen onto Tegan. Doctor's trying to lift. Murka accidentally steps on the edge of the door, which pivots it up, and Tegan escapes. Well, electricity is conducted through metal, so she was lucky. Not through rubber. So on screen, she was perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I haven't mentioned, that sort of when you touched on the set design, I love the way that they use the pool for the Doctor to fall into it, because it looks like this is actually a proper chemical works or something like that they've shot it in, and it's really well done.
I mean, I was going to say, did they construct the set, or did they really go to the sea base? I'm assuming that they weren't filming on location. I'm assuming that they built all this.
They did the underwater stuff on a location at I think it was a naval base.
Right.
And they sort of got the camera crew and got all the stuff they needed with Peter underwater there.
Right. But the actual fall, it was quite a distance.
That was done in studio, by his stuntman.
So that's... I was hoping not Peter. But that was quite an impressive scene, I have to say. But again, that's the thing about that set. It was built on quite a few levels. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see, I'm sure you have it, the floor plan to see how they were doing that. But, it wasn't a cheat like Horror of Fang Rock, where you're just building sections of Lighthouse. This had to be big.
It's like Russell T likes. He likes vertical drama, not just horizontal, like a computer game. Although, that said, with that first cliffhanger, the Doctor's fallen in the water, and Turlough's like, face it, Tegan, he's drowned after like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, that's it, Tegan, that's it. The Doctor's, no matter what we've been through and whatever he's come back from, that's it. Come on, let's go. And it's like... But I did feel that for both of them, it was I'm not criticising what they did, but they didn't have much to work with their lines and their scripts. Peter Davison had been given quite a lot to work with, but the Tegan and Turlough stuff was very minimal. It wasn't quite, where are we, Doctor? What's this, Doctor? When are we going, Doctor? Or is that it, Doctor? But it wasn't far off it.
Yeah, it was perfunctory, generic companion writing.
Yeah, exactly. They could have been anywhere. Anyone. Tick corner here. Mm-hmm. The missile runs. Again,
yes.
In the book, so much better in my brain, but BBC Micro, let's plug it in.
It looks like Missile Command, the Commodore 64 game.
Yeah, and let's use the sound effects from the BBC Micro as well to give us all their stuff. Do you know, it worked perfectly well, but whenever I see it, I think, BBC Micro, I could have done that. Dead simple.
Yeah.
Not quite 10 print missile run, but it's not far off it. But again, good use of the technology at the time. Yeah,
with those yellow alert, red alert, green, and then very much those wonderful 1984 or what was it, 1983 when they made this. But those wonderful of the time graphics. So
state of the art. I mean, it wasn't even cheap, but you could do it. Anybody could do it. You didn't have to have an optical lab pretending to make a computer.
Yeah.
So it was good stuff. Not sure about sliding doors in the sea base, but I'm going to give them that one. Mm-hmm. They had to get people through and back, and not only that, they had to get Silurians and Sea Devils through these things as well. I did like the fact that they tried to keep the mythology, so they had Ichthar left over from the cave monsters. I did think that was nice, so we didn't just have a random Silurian coming in. The Doctor said, "Oh, I know your people." He said, "Well, I know you." And there was a moment there you thought, actually, this could work out. It was never going to, but there was a moment you thought, oh, well, And, the fact that Ichtar's saying, well, you tried, I paraphrase, you tried to help us. So after it's all over and everyone's dead, it's okay, you can go. That's fine. And the Doctor's going, oh, no, I'm not too happy about that. But that was a nice bit of writing, I thought.
Yeah, it is, of course, slightly retconned by Gary Russell's book, Scales of Injustice, which I think is available if you find it on the BBC website where they used to do their old ebooks. And there's a retcon in there. So, but that's another problem for another day. Gary's not here to discuss it.
Fair enough. Another big problem I do have, and again, my companion sitting to the right of me asked the question. Well, I didn't ask the question, stated, they can't just walk into the TARDIS.
But they left the door open.
I know it was a plot point, but it's like in the DNA. But the TARDIS, nothing can get in. I know they had to say, yes, they're telling the truth. This is indeed an amazing vessel, but that was a weird one.
Mhm.
Anything could have got in. I mean, how do we know there's not a sea devil still wandering around in there after, maybe the sea devils are butling for Sutek all this time. Anyway, that was now, Kenny, Anorak, the important thing we talk about set.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice on the Silurian vessel, I was going to say spaceship, Silurian vessel, did you notice the slightly red crimson thing?
Yes, the red pulsing device. That's the tip of a cyber gun.
This tip of a cyber gun. Nice reuse of set, but a bit obvious.
I remember seeing that on first viewing and recognising and thinking, yep, I know exactly what that's from. So, yeah, matter of chopping up, no doubt, what he had lying around. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wondered as well, so we've talked about the set and possibly going on to the next Dalek serial. But I was wondering whether there was a reuse of Earthshock sets there as well. Because again, it was just that kind of vibe, but then it was Base Under Siege, which is Freighter Under Siege, I suppose.
Because I think I know that the set designer in this was Tony Burrow, because I read that in the 1983 Radio Times special, and they did feature in quite a few bits of his work. And I think that a lot of it was original, but probably some of the flats came out of storage, and there'll be sort of generic spaceship walls or retooled as sea base. Do you know what? I've just thought you could have called this Deep Sea 9 if you wanted to. If you wanted to make it a Star Trek version. Obviously, it was not a Sea Base 4, but anyway, that kind of ruins the joke, if it was a joke at all. But yeah, I also love the fact that there's keep door locked, stickers like the ones that you get now. Even now, keep door shut, keep door locked, and all these things. And thought that's quite funny. They still use those in the future in that standard British safety notice for office buildings, left, right, and centre.
I did utter the polite words, "Welcome to the party, pal," as they headed for the air vents. But I did feel really sorry. I can't remember the actor's name. The tall lady.
Yes, she's very good.
She's very good, but Turlough having to give her a lift up to get into the air vents, and you're thinking that's a really small opening for someone who is so tall. Yep,
Tara Ward's the actress, and the character's name is going out of my head for now. But apparently that whole stuff between them was worked out to be deliberate compared to like Tegan's clean getaway, whereas they were sort of faffing around, so they were sort of making it a bit of a laugh and trying to make it slightly different. So
it was quite funny, and I did like her character. I have to say, really high body count.
Oh, ridiculously so, yeah.
And some inconsistencies. You've got trying to revive the Silurians, and then obviously one of the Silurians is trying to shoot someone else, but then Turlough kind of just shoots it. I did find that a bit odd, and everybody dies as far as we know, except I'm just going to call him Hexochromite Man. I'm sure he had a better name. He's busy pumping the gas in, and he's the only one.
You like Preston? That was Tara Ward's character,
right? He's the only one that I can think actually survived. I mean, there's probably some Warriors of the Deep still in the freezer, and the ship's still attached somewhere. But as far as we could make out, you've got the three regulars and him. Yeah. I assume they go back and rescue him, or I don't know.
So, but the fact that the captain just gives a hoot, Vorshak is just sort of like Commander Vorshak, should say, and he just gives up and dies, and it's like, I must have been shot earlier. And
what with the little flame torches, which were very, very unimpressive compared to their old discs that
just have a light up light. It's almost like these selfie lights that all the YouTube kids have, and sort of just like press the button and then it lights up. There's your ring light, so ta-da!
Yeah, but not even light enough for the cameras to pick up, because the cameras had so much light. It does bring us to it's a very harsh ending. I mean, you probably heard me say this, with some with dramas, I recommend you never end on a laugh. too many Star Trek episodes where maybe, 20 crewmen have been killed, and then they have their, well, Captain, everything's fine. Don't worry, Spock, that'll be a insert pun here. And you think 20 people have died, or 100 people have died, and you're having a bit of a joke. So my constant mantra is never end on a laugh. This definitely didn't end on a laugh. With the famous words, "There should have been another way," which I think will go with Peter forever. And then it just stops. It's just a strange ending.
It is. I mean, that's probably the thing that most Doctor Who fans could quote that as being, give us a quote from the story, and you think of Frontios. The one thing I can quote from that is "Tractators," and then start slobbering in the way that Mark Strickson does. But yeah, there should have been another way. I mean, I can't see any other way how you could have taken that on, to tag on something else to say. But it's still, I agree, it's definitely a strange way to finish it.
I mean, again, it's in hindsight, oh, Doctor, they're all dead, and, maybe, if the TARDIS had been closer, and then, he could have been just standing outside it, going, there should have been another way, ducking inside and door closing. I don't know. It just... You ever watch Quantum Leap?
No. Okay. I've maybe seen like half a dozen episodes, but it was never one for me. Dave loves it.
You don't need to know particularly the reference, but at the end of an episode, it's famous for not concluding the episode. He does the right thing. You think, oh, you're going to get the resolution. He's going to say goodbye to the characters. But, something happens. It's right. And then he suddenly leaps and you never see those characters again. And you feel a bit cheated. You get used to it, but it still is pretty raw. I'm not saying it's exactly like this, but there was just something kind of missing. If you'd taken the Dalek serial and you'd finished on, without Tegan's last line, which was heartbreaking, if you just had the Doctor, Tom's goodbye to Leela. It's on that kind of level. It's like, oh, well, the episode's finished now. I can't remember how the book ended. How did the book end? Did we have any better?
I don't think there was. I can't remember it being different. No, off the top of my head, no. I should have had my novelisation handy. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a strange ending. Something that I will say that I do like about this is the fact that the Doctor's out of his cricketing garb for this episode. Yeah. And I think that makes a pleasant change rather than being in that same outfit all the time, because it sort of gives it almost that, it makes it slightly more real.
I think he had to be, because the celery went limp.
That happens when you're air pressure under the sea.
Yeah, I mean, he was soaked. I do like it when they go out of their regular stuff, and David Tennant, good example, when he's, in his various space uniforms in various episodes. I think that was nicely done. John Pertwee did it quite a lot, didn't he? Stay, when it wasn't practical to wear frills.
Even in Doctor in the Silurians, he's got his cave mining gear on.
Yes.
And he changes it, or when he's dressed up as a cleaning lady. Yep.
I mean, it's much more practical and much more blend in, and they had to do it for the plot. I think they could have done with a lot more of that to try and blend in, but it was very much kind of, this is the iconic Doctor. They come out of the Tom season, and when you speak to people, they always say, "Oh yeah, he always wore the same thing and the scarf," and actually his outfit changed throughout. But I think they were just trying to follow that and follow some of the previous Doctors. I think all in all, rewatching it, I think I was a wee bit disappointed. My remembrance of it didn't quite match up with how I look at stuff now.
Yeah.
But I know the story is sound because the book is sound.
You think that the next story after this is The Awakening, which is a two-parter, and I think that this could possibly have worked as a three-parter, because episode 3 is very much just the Silurians and the Sea Devils and the Murka are walking through the sea base. Yeah. And that's very much a sort of quick retreats, get ourselves safe. and make ourselves, hide. And that's all episode 3 is. It's just a moving through corridors, and you could have pretty much trimmed so much of that episode down and sped up the Sea Devils, and just even if you had somebody walking just with those feet on, you could have sped it up the action.
Yeah.
You're out of shot, all you need to do is have the feet on and just have them walking past the camera down at a low angle, and that would have given you just a bit more drama to it and impetus and danger.
Of course, had we been there, we wouldn't have done it any differently because of the budget constraints and requirements at the time and what was available. I think that's the problem with some of these episodes, because it's like McCoy's series. You've got really, really weak episodes followed by amazing episodes. And this season is exactly the same. I think that a revisit of this on an audio, I know we always talk about, recovering stuff to be able to watch it, but I actually think this, in combo with the book, a 45-minute audio would be a good revisit with the cast that we've got left.
Yeah. Well, they did issue an edited down version of the novelisation read by Peter Davison on, I think it was like a 90-minute cassette.
Yeah.
So that was out in the 90s. So yeah.
That followed on the success of the State of Decay tapes, if you remember those.
From Pickwick. Oh yes, I've got the theme tune here. We used it a few weeks ago too. Yeah, when we had Michael Stevens on. But yes, but I mean, all in all, I agree with you. I think it's a story of missed opportunities. There's an okay story in there, but
and some nice characters.
But it's smothered by cumbersome lack of pacing, and I think that just kills the drama because there's no real tension, because you've just got these slow-moving, lumbering creatures coming to get you.
Yeah, or not.
Yes. So I'm just watching the scenes as it's on the background. Preston and Turlough, sort of, as you mentioned, the vent scene, and Preston's lovely. She'd have made a good companion.
Yes, she's very, very long.
She is. She's a tall lady.
And she's just not. I mean, she's doing her best to get into that vent without Mark Strickson's much help from him.
Yeah.
I bet you they when they shouted cut, a few people came out and helped her down.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would have been there to help.
Okay.
So, Dave, would you have happily helped Preston into that air vent?
Well, I'm a gentleman first and foremost, and I would have found a way to do it without laying on hands. I probably would have found something else for her to climb on. What is the Deep's a funny one. I remember, when season 21 started, and I don't want to say too much more about that because we'll probably be chatting about season 21 on its eventual Blu-ray release. I remember the anticipation being quite high because I was properly a fan by that point. This was quite soon after the Five Doctors, obviously. And I probably got a pile of books for Christmas 1983. And I remember the trailer with the spinning TARDIS and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure there was some clips of the Doctor. That's a Silurian battle cruiser, something like that. I'm sure that was in the trailer. Maybe if it's on a Blu-ray box set, we'll be able to watch that trailer again. And I remember really liking the cliffhanger to episode 1. I still think it's one of the best cliffhangers ever. It's seamless the way it cuts between Peter Davison and Gareth Milne. It's phenomenal. And I'm not one of these folk. I'm not as critical on Warriors of the Deep as some people. We all know the stories about how the election sort of interfered with production and such like, and they didn't have time to rehearse with America and all that. And I think, like it's been said by a lot of people, there's a lot of Doctor Who stories are kind of sometimes sort of stymied by design choices, and I think people say they should turn the lights down, but there is some quite atmospheric lighting in a lot of the corridor scenes. It's not like it's all gleaming TARDIS console room white, all the time. There is some, there's almost a hint of natural artificial light, in as much as people will be standing in shaded areas and they're only lit by the overhead lights in the next sort of segment of the set. And I think it does work quite well. I think the makeup choices are a bit funny, but it's 1983. What are you gonna do? And I think it's one of Davison's really best performances. You can tell that he's trying to raise it a little bit above what he's obviously thought, oh God, what have we got here? And he's really, really good in season 21. and he gets a little bit more to do than he does in season 20 when he's just Joe Exposition for most of it. So the only things I don't really like about the Sea Devils, I think the sort of Japanese samurai costume designs for the Sea Devils are just shocking. Why would they look like, why would they have these stylings? It makes no sense. Unless this was a particular bunch of Sea Devils who'd spent a little bit of time kicking about the Far East or whatever, and grabbed a few sailors from that area. I'm not sure. I think it's underrated, but I can understand why people might have issues with it.
Well, I hate to disagree with Dave, but I think it is somewhat overlit. But that doesn't really detract, I think, from what for me are some of the real strong points. Again, I haven't watched it recently. I did watch it when it came out in VHS. I do have it on DVD as part of the Sea Devil collection, or the whatever it's called, Ancient Monsters, or can't remember how they put the collection together.
Beneath the Surface, that was it. Something like that.
Beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really based on my original viewing from many moons ago. A little interesting thing, I'm saying it's interesting, it's probably not interesting, but I knew that the Sea Devils were coming before it was announced, because I remember when the 20th anniversary Radio Times special came out, there was that photograph of John Nathan Turner in his office, and I don't know, it was my little neurodivergent brain. I was scanning all of the photographs, and then I saw this thing of the Sea Devil, and I thought, that's not from anything I've seen, that's definitely a Sea Devil. And of course, back in 1983, long before the internet or before chat rooms, I suppose the DWS was in existence, and probably I could have got together to talk about it. But I remember saying to some of my friends in school, I said, the Sea Devils must be coming back. Look at this, And this, as I said, was a couple of months before it was announced that they were coming back. And I still get a little rush of vindication when I think of how right I was back then. And if only I had X or Twitter or Outpost Gallifrey or Gallifrey Base, I would have been all over it like a rash.
Hooked up to a BBC Micro.
Exactly. Or my ZX Spectrum. But yeah, so I really, I have fonder memories of Warriors of the Deep than others, perhaps. For me, there was an element of grittiness about it, because I was old enough to recognise that in 1984 the Cold War had got a bit chillier. Again, mentioning Buick and where I live, just across the river from a nuclear base, and at that point we had an American nuclear base just along from that in the Holy Loch. So this whole thing about war and missiles and destruction, that was very much in the air at that time, and I remember that this resonated in a very particular way. Again, okay, I felt it was slightly overlit. I loved the water, that the Doctor drops down into. I thought that was really well done. I didn't mind the way the Silurians and the Sea Devils were realised. I did bridle a little about the Silurian referring to their Sea Devil cousins or whatever it was. Calling them Sea Devils. They're not Sea Devils. And even the old Murka isn't as bad as people say. So it's like Rentaghost, Dobbin, or whatever it was. It really wasn't that bad. Ingrid Pitt's kick might be seen as a bit naff, or but I thought on the whole it was pretty good, to be honest. A somber note struck at the end in what felt like a very abrupt conclusion. But I guess, again, it packs a little bit of a punch. No, but for me, it's prompted me to go back and watch it again. I can't remember in this one, do Do the Silurians' third eyes flicker in time with their speech?
Yes, that's what they've become. They no longer do the to open fences or gates or whatever now. It's just an indicator as to who's talking, sadly.
Yeah. It's probably that's maybe a bit naff. But by and large, I much prefer, I know they were talking about the Sea Devils, but I much prefer the original and even the remade iteration of the Silurians compared with the new series. It's one of the things that I just don't really care for them. I guess it would be difficult to do the things with them, in terms of making them more recognizably human and allowing them to have kind of romantic relationships. Is when you can't really imagine the original Silurians getting smoochy with each other.
Yeah, wouldn't have been so easy for Jenny and Vastra.
Exactly. I like, and I thought, well, it's a pity they didn't, but the kind of concept drawings for bringing back the Silurians where they looked much more like their 1970s and 80s counterparts.
Yeah, it's funny how we were talking earlier about the Sea Devils and you mentioned their slow movement, and Stevie and I were just talking about that they're even slower in Warriors of the Deep because those heads really look like they could topple at any moment, given that there's one whose head's at a 45-degree angle at one point. So.
Yeah, he looks a little bit poorly, as if he's about to crash out and tripping the colour, something like that, And why the sort of samurai look. But I guess it leaves that kind of space open to the fact that there isn't just one sort of tribe or sect or community of aquatic Eocenes. That they could have different cultures, different cultural imprints and things like that. So yeah, I must revisit it.
And our final story that we're going to be looking at today is a more recent one, which was broadcast in, oh my goodness, the 17th of April 2022. We're talking about Legend of the Sea Devils, where I suppose having had samurai Sea Devils, here we've gone, and here they are out in the Far East as well. So, Dave, thoughts on this one?
First, this one, the night went out, I'm pretty sure a friend of the show, Joanna Floyd, came round and we watched it together. This, I said that I felt that Warriors of the Deep was sort of underrated and maybe slightly maligned, and I kind of feel the same about Legend of the Sea Devils. It was very interesting watching it again. When Brandon was on recently, he talked about how good the visuals of a lot of the Jodie episodes were, and that was the thing that struck me. This was widescreen as heck. It looked phenomenal. I mean, there was a real depth to a lot of the shots, and the effect sequences were amazing. But there's a couple of points I had to rewind a couple of scenes because I thought, right, actually, what? Because I'm still not sure exactly what the Sea Devils were trying to do or why. There was all the stuff with the treasure and all that sort of stuff, and the sailor had been sort of, frozen in time or whatever, and that was all fine. But there was something about, it was about when they're outside and the stars all kind of move around, and it's something to do with the Sea Devils wanting to flip the magnetic core or something, I think. I'm not too sure.
It's like Iceberg by David Banks, where it's happening naturally, but they want to force it.
Yeah, I felt that could have done with a bit more emphasis, and it had that. It has that slightly unfortunate thing that happens in a lot of JW episodes where she has to explain what's going on through lots of technobabble, and you're never quite entirely sure that. Let me put this a different way. Sometimes I think other doctors do a better job of selling the technobabble, or at least giving the sense that they might not understand it, but they can make it sound as if they understand it. I think Jodie suffered a bit with that sometimes. But there was tons to enjoy in this. I was really surprised watching it again. There's some amazing costume work in it. I love how Dan is basically dressed up as a pirate, like he was in an Adam and the Ants video or something. Like he was standing in the back cover of Prince Charming. It was hilarious. I'd forgotten that. And I'd also forgotten that John Bishop, who played Dan, and Catherine Tate had both been in the video for Happy Now by Take That. I'd forgotten about that. The ultimate, even more so than the cover of Nobody Else, the great Doctor Who Take That crossover. Of course, and what's his name? James Corden's in it as well, who's obviously in 2 Matt Smith episodes. Whether or not you count him as a companion or just recurring, it's up to you.
Definitely not a companion.
Anyway, I like to think there's a few on broadcast adventures. And the sort of, I like the big sea monster. I wish they just called it the Merca.
Yes, it should have been the Merca. Absolutely. It's the fact that they didn't name it, because I was checking. No mention about it at all. They just call it the monster, so it was a Merca. No get away from it.
I remember seeing the trailer at the end of the New Year's Dalek story, and I'm sure you see the monster in it, and I was like, oh, the Merca, oh my god, amazing. My main takeaway this time watching it was that I really liked how, actually I had two, amongst the things that were my main sort of takeaway this time. I'm kind of on record as not liking the modern redesign of the Silurians. Far too far removed from what was done with them on TV in the 70s and 80s. They might as well be just completely different. They're all obviously much more humanoid with more defined human features. They don't, the masks are just completely different. Whereas these sea devils looked like proper sea devils, and I love the fact that they were wearing, much more human-like clothing than just the string vest and all that sort of stuff. I thought the sea devils were great. It was really cool when just the shots of them blinking was just cool, because we're used to the kind of static mask with the spaniel eyes on or the original Eighth Doctor, as on the cover of the 1991 Marvel Doctor Who yearbook. It was just nice seeing that little sort of extra subtle enhancement. I really liked that sort of part of it.
Of course, do you remember? I don't remember when we were at the Monster Makers or the Monster Men last year. They had one of the actual Sea Devil heads from Legends of Sea Devils, plus one of the originals as well, and they were side by side. Right.
Yeah, but they were stood behind Big Neil, weren't they?
Yes, and they looked absolutely. I actually thought it looked better in person than it did on screen, and they looked great on screen, but in person,
yeah,
it was lovely. It was just a lovely piece of work and a nice piece of design, and it just shows that a timeless classic is hard to beat.
Oh yeah, you can't beat a design classic, and I think I must reiterate, I was so pleased that they'd gone. See, if they'd done these, there'd have been no point doing the Sea Devils if you're just going to humanise them and make them look like an actor in a body stocking. We'll come back to that comment, I'm sure.
For me, I think that I cannot disagree with that. I think it looks amazing throughout, particularly the scenes where on the pirate ship, and obviously it's in studio, but the sea that they've got behind them, it looks fantastic. I did wonder, why was the Sea Devil, the Chief Sea Devil, why is it turned into a statue for so long?
I think he was trapped inside a sort of... Was he trapped inside or changed? See, again, it wasn't too clear.
Yeah, and then when he does his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mega jump onto the ship, it's like, whoa!
Yeah,
it's sort of a bit like the Master in The End of Time. It's like, where did that come from?
I would have liked it. I would have, if I'd had time, I probably would have watched it again. I saw there's a commentary on the disc, so I might well watch it again out of own interest. Mm. Yeah, it was cool. It was sort of able to move and a bit more fluidly than especially than the Warriors of the Deep Sea Devils. I mean, the other thing to talk about this episode, and I've said many times in the past, I'm not a fan of the Doctor being a romantic character. Mm-hmm. And this was, and I've talked about this before, I think, but one thing I did actually really like about this episode in Transmission, and I liked it even more this time, was just the way they addressed I'm not going to say the portmanteau word.
Don't say that word, it's awful.
The relationship between the Doctor and Yaz. I really liked the way that was handled. It wasn't the Doctor being aware that Yaz had feelings and all that, but the Doctor in that in Jodie's Doctor's particularly sort of way of articulating stuff, I really liked how it was done. I'm not, the Doctor basically saying, this isn't something I can do, but if I could, and I preferred that rather than Rose and the 10th Doctor mooning all over each other, or the 11th and 12th Doctor's obsession with Clara. I've talked endlessly how much the first Capaldi series was just torpedoed for me, with that emphasis. But this felt like a mature, sensible conversation between two friends, one of whom knows that the other has developed feelings for them, and sort of saying, look, I can't do it, I can't reciprocate, I can't do anything about it, but equally I'm not going anywhere. And and if you can work with that, then I can. And it was quite poignant, because you remember that obviously the next episode was the 13th Doctor's last one. Mm-hmm. And just how, and again, I think the emotional stuff of that was done really, really well. It wasn't ladled on, it wasn't forced, it didn't make you cringe like some of the stuff with the 11th Doctor and Amy, or and and the 10th and Rose stuff, which just still keeps hanging over the show. It was subtle, and I've been critical in the past about some things about the 13th Doctor era, but I this episode really surprised me. I'd remembered how badly received it was, and watching it this time, I thought, no, it's fine. There could be a few more points of order about an explanation about what the Sea Devils are up to and why. Because there was a couple of points I rewound a couple of scenes, and I was just like, sorry, I'm still none the wiser. But again, it was made during COVID. There have been a lot of pressures. The fact it looks as good as it did, and they got that done while everything was still shot to heck, is amazing. I was really impressed with it this time.
Yeah. See, I've never been a big fan of John Bishop. I find him really, really irritating. He's never been. I've never found him particularly funny, but watching this one, I thought he was great in this. He's as you said, like in his pirate gear, and the fact that Yaz has sort of been taking the mickey out of him, dressing him up, and I absolutely goes for it, and he's having a laugh, to use a...
Yeah, I have to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen any of his stand-up at all. He's just one of these guys that started being on television in the 2000s and the 2010s, and they were supposedly comedians, and I'm like, right, if you say so. There's tons and tons of these people. They appear in panel shows. All the time, and they've usually got residencies on Mock the Week, and they're usually called Russell. That's one of Stuart Lee's jokes, but you know what I mean. But I think I've no idea, what his comedy's like or anything. But I thought he was fine in Doctor Who. It was one of these sort of a bit like the stuff that John Nathan Turner used to do in the 80s, when you get sitcom and comedy actors in to play serious roles, and 9 times out of 10 they'd nail it. And it was another one of those. I think he was really good, and it was interesting the way he was written out at the start of the next episode and all that. There was a lot of interesting ideas. I always get this sort of feeling that if Mr. Chibnall had a couple more weeks on each episode, or maybe another couple of days on each episode would have been a bit tidier.
Yeah. Someone who really impressed me was Crystal Yu's Madam Ching, because I remembered her from Casualty,
right,
where she played Lily Chow, who was pretty much a bit of a cold fish, very detached, and not engaged with the rest of the people at Hobby General. And I thought she was really good in this, and the fact that she's obviously lost her own children, and here she's effectively adopting a new crew member, and I thought she was really good throughout.
Yeah, she was. I think everyone in it was really good. Who directed this one? Do you remember?
This was directed by Hao Lu Wang.
Yeah, it was all very fluid, very, very well directed, and I think there wasn't a bad performance in it, I think, to be honest, which is unlike Eve of the Daleks, which had one absolutely stinking rotten performance right at the heart of it, but we'll save that for another episode maybe. No, I like, just to reiterate, I liked it a lot. I was surprised, and watching it with my, I hope I'm not sounding like a hypocrite when, as much as I hate the Doctor being a romantic character, I think the way the Doctor and Yaz was handled was just so much better than so many. So, it's interesting watching that. I keep meaning to go back and watch, a lot of Jodie's stuff again, just to kind of watch the development of that relationship. I remember last time I watched Arachnids in the UK and sort of thought, there's definite hints in that. There really is. And it was, interesting.
Entertaining enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say more than that. I think entertaining enough doesn't really do it justice. It looks brilliant. The regulars are all really good. It's great to see a returning monster done properly. Plot kind of falls down a bit, but the visuals, to be honest, the performances, and there's some really good jokes so close to each other. There's a bit when what is it? History. History isn't like the books. It's like it's like a Stephen King movie. That was
yes.
Good. And there's a bit when I think it's the point when the TARDIS is on the seabed and stuff, and the Doctor says, "No ship, Sherlock." I loved it. That
yes,
I thought that was excellent. And there was a couple of other really good jokes quite close together. There was, it wasn't bad. It's just I think the actual threat and what was actually at stake needed a bit more of a polish. Needed to be clarified and maybe made a bit more up front and centre.
Yeah, and it was also interesting watching it as a modern episode with the soundtrack from Seguin and all that. And I thought it was a lovely piece of music throughout, or lovely music throughout.
Yeah.
Subtle and in the background.
Yeah. I've absolutely. You're not getting hammered in the face like you would if it had been Murray Gold, especially the scene I talked about the Doctor and Yaz. Not a bad day, Emma. That bit, and you got the sense that with Murray Gold, it would just have been doused in syrupy strings and just would have been ruined. But there was room for Jodie and Mandip to really, and Mandip especially is amazing in these scenes. You can tell her heart is just breaking, and there's room. Because they're not getting swamped by the score, there's room for them to really play it out. I didn't think I'd be so pro and so passionate about this episode. I'm as surprised as you are, listeners.
Like yourselves, gentlemen, I liked it, and it's one of the few times that I've watched an episode a couple of times on transmission, because I think it was the pull of the Sea Devils. I was so pleased that they were coming back, and I thought I would really like to see how the enhanced production values could make them more believable, and I think they did a lovely job on them. I was so pleased that they were so faithful to the original design. They didn't really change anything other than giving them other costumes to kind of fit in with the kind of Chinese pirate motif. So no, I really liked it, and I was quite surprised by the flack that it took. Yeah, the whole thing about since when were Sea Devils able to fly and all of that. That was a little bit, and I do understand some people saying, but the pacing fell off and all of that. I to be honest with you, I didn't really notice that. I was just so invested in the story that I was watching. I'm just so happy again, as I said, to see the Sea Devils back and so well realised. So I thought it was really good, and special effects and all of that I thought were brilliant. So I'm with you in standing firm against those who say it was an unmitigated disaster. I've got a lot of love for that particular story.
It's the blinking of the Sea Devil eyes. I think that really sells it to me as well. It sort of makes them more realistic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So Stevie, we talked about the samurai influences on Warriors of the Deep.
Yep.
Here it's taken to the next level.
It's taken to a level. Yeah. I wasn't a great fan. I mean, this was marked as a special, wasn't it?
Yes. Jodie's penultimate episode.
Yep. It was fast moving. It paced along. The costume was great. But I think it took me a couple of viewings to get it in to my head. I'm not sure that I think Silurians work. I think Sea Devils have always lacked a little bit of that mythos behind them. The Silurians were always kind of seemed to be the master race. That's a bad phrase, but the top race, and Sea Devils were brothers and sisters below.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of interesting ideas, lots of interesting visuals, but I just wasn't a fan. I didn't really engage with the story. Beautifully shot, beautifully lit. The money's in there. Everyone did a great job. I don't know whether it was just a story that was not for me. I've watched it at least twice. When I don't like a story, I've got to try and think, what mood was I in when I was watching it? Because if I'm not in a great frame of mind and it's a mediocre story, I'm probably not going to like it. So I've got to give it a second chance somewhere else. And the second chance, and possibly the third, it was more or less the same. It was on in the background. I watched it. It's part of Doctor Who. It's canon. But it doesn't leave me particularly wanting to go and investigate it more.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you one and all for that. Remember, listeners, you can follow us on social media. We're at Power of 3 Pod on Twitter, at Finished Zine on Blue Sky, and we have a Facebook group too. And if you have enjoyed what we do, feel free to leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Of course, as you know, Dave, we like to play out with the tune. So do you have anything you'd like to nominate?
Well, I was just sort of thinking, Sea Devils, it might be nice to have something by one of my favourite bands of my 30s. They've dropped the British, but they used to be called British Sea Power. And there's a song called, dozens of songs that have a sort of aquatic, sort of watery sort of themes and feels to them. But there's one called Carrion, and there's a version of Carrion, which is just a sort of loop of the intro sort of guitar sort of sound. And it would complement the score to the original story very nicely. So yes, I would like to suggest Carrion by British Sea Power.
So Stevie, any thoughts of a song that we could play out with? What's of your recommendation?
Well, I do, because I think the Merca and Dr. Solo need a bit of moment in the sun. So I think Kung Fu Fighting, and if you could do a wee edit for the YouTube channel, Kenny, to get them to do that. Everyone can see what I'm doing on the YouTube channel. Get them just to do that along with that. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah. And if you are a skilled video editor, please send an email to the earth2podcast@gmail.com and show us what you can do.
Yeah, with Dr. Solo and the Merca, obviously, not just random video, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So John, it's your turn to nominate a track for our playout. So what would you like to go with?
Well, I honestly don't know very much about what will be in the war between the land and the sea. I suspect there may be an element of interspecies romance, perhaps, I don't know. But anyway, my suggestion is Underwater Love by Smoke City. This was on a CD of kind of chilled 90s music that I had back in the day. And yeah, I think Underwater Love is quite appropriate. Certainly, it's very appropriate for my feelings towards the Sea Devils. It sounds a bit seedy. That sounded better in my head than it does out loud. But I've got a lot of love for the Sea Devils. I think it might be in keeping with the new story. Who knows? So that's my suggestion. Underwater Love.
I think given that we've had 3 tremendous suggestions today, I think we'll just have to have a bit of them all.
Well done. Compromise is always the best way out.
Stevie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, guys. This has been superb. Sorry. This has been superb. Oh, gas.
I hope everyone enjoys the war between the land and the sea. Slightly trepidatious, but we'll see how it goes. Probably we'll be back to talk about it very soon, I'm sure. Take it easy, folks. Bye.
Bye.
So until next time, we'll see you all very soon.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with